Since we're leaving today, could you please make arrangements to relocate? We'll also handle the $473 monthly loan with my daughter on the way. We no longer need your help. I said. Understood. Please take care of everything from here on out, came the response. Despite all the support we had given to our in-laws, it was clear they had quickly shifted their allegiance to the younger sister. As I packed my things by the door, I decided to address something important. By the way, there's been a misunderstanding regarding the loan repayments. It's exactly as I mentioned, I explained. Their faces drained of color as the reality of the situation hit them. I'm Emily, 35, an office worker. I've been married to Tom for 3 years. We were introduced by a mutual friend who believed we'd be a perfect match, and that gut feeling turned out to be spot on. From our very first conversation, Tom and I clicked. He felt the same way, and soon we were dating. 2 years later, he proposed, and I eagerly said yes. Our families were supportive, and we had a beautiful wedding with all our loved ones there. After our honeymoon, we started our life together, sharing household duties and enjoying a peaceful, happy life. Tom, who had lived alone for a long time, was a fantastic cook, which was a huge help. We worked well together, always appreciating each other's company. 3 years passed in a flash, and our connection was as strong as ever. But then, Tom's father fell seriously ill. We rushed to the hospital, where he underwent a week of tests. He was released, but the risk of recurrence still hung over us. Realizing they might not cope with another emergency, Tom came up with a proposal. What if we lived together with my parents? He suggested one evening. I was caught off guard, but after giving it some thought, I agreed. We quickly discussed it with his parents. Live together? Tom's mother asked. Surprised. It's no trouble at all, I reassured her. Tom and I are just concerned about both of you. Thank you for letting us help. With looks of relief and gratitude, they accepted our offer. It was clear they were both anxious, but also comforted by the thought of us moving in. So, we packed up and moved in with them. My mother-in-law, understanding that both of us worked, took on most of the household chores. Thanks to her efforts, Tom and I could focus on our jobs, while Tom's father, now retired, spent his days resting at home. His health improved significantly, and life felt harmonious. However, not long after, our in-laws made a proposal that caught us off guard. I've been thinking about this for a while, Tom's father began. What would you think about us building a new 2-family house? Huh? I replied, surprised. This house isn't exactly spacious or comfortable for 4 adults, and if Tom and I have children in the future, it will be even more cramped. Tom's mother joined in. Considering the future, I've been thinking it might be better to build a larger house, one where we can all live comfortably for years to come. But, as you know, it's not something we can manage on my savings alone. We'll need to discuss this and make a decision together. Tom and I were taken aback by the suggestion, but after a lot of thought, we didn't think it was a bad idea. While the current house wasn't cramped, it wasn't ideal for 4 adults, and adding children in the future would make things even more difficult. Perhaps it was time to look for a new place where we could all live comfortably without the strain. After discussing it with Tom, we decided to move forward with his father's idea. The 4 of us visited real estate agents, exploring different properties. We wanted to find a home that would be barrier-free for our in-laws, with enough space for everyone and rooms for potential future children. Ideally, our new house should be located in a safe neighborhood, close to both a hospital and a train station, with easy access to grocery stores. Considering everyone's needs, it seemed like it might be a bit on the pricey side. However, we all agreed that if we were going to settle here for the rest of our lives, we didn't want to compromise too much. Each of us felt the same way, and with renewed determination, we decided to go ahead and build our dream home, even if it came at a high cost. After a while, our new house was finally completed. The exterior and interior were both pristine and beautiful, and just gazing at it lifted our spirits. This is truly amazing. I can't afford to get sick anymore. I want to stay healthy and live here for as long as I can, my in-laws said, their voices filled with joy. Tom and I shared their excitement, realizing that this house was going to be the one we'd live in for the rest of our lives, even when we had children. I want to play catch in the garden and have barbecues. That sounds wonderful. Let's create plenty of memories here. Our hearts were full of joy. Living in this new home was incredibly comfortable. And it felt like the peak of happiness. Being in such a peaceful, well-designed space made me even more motivated at work. Everything seemed to fall into place, and my personal and professional life flourished. I felt truly grateful for our decision to buy this house. Time passed quickly, and before we knew it, 2 years had gone by in our new home. We maintained a strong relationship with our in-laws, confident that the future would be filled with happiness. However, life in our dream home wasn't as smooth as we had hoped. An unexpected event occurred when my sister-in-law and her husband visited. "This is a nice house, but it's not fair that only you two get to live here," she remarked, looking around. "What are you talking about? We discussed everything and decided to buy this house with our parents," I responded, confused. "But it feels like you're living beyond your means. When we were stuck in a cheap apartment, it seemed like you were living the high life," she retorted, bitterness in her voice. She often visited during holidays, and each time, she would express her envy. She made repeated comments about how unfair it was that we had such a nice home. "We've been paying the mortgage every month, which is quite hefty, but we're living within our means. We earn enough to afford this house, so there's no reason for her to complain," I explained to Tom later. "Wouldn't it be fun if we all lived here with the in-laws?" she suggested one time. "What, can you even afford the mortgage for this house?" Tom replied, puzzled. My husband and I exchanged a look. Her words seemed thoughtless, but they were enough to stir something in my in-laws. "It would be lovely if Kana could move in here with us," my mother-in-law said, her voice softening. "Yes, it would be so lively," my father-in-law added. I frowned. "What are you two talking about? Haven't we been living together all along?" "Oh, I was just joking," my mother-in-law tried to laugh it off. "Exactly. No need to worry," my father-in-law chimed in, but it was clear they were intrigued by the idea of living with my sister-in-law. It wasn't surprising. My sister-in-law, with her delicate features and doll-like appearance, had always been their favorite. Born 4 years after Tom, she was the child they pampered, especially since they had her later in life. Over the years, this pampering had made her quite spoiled, and Tom had often found himself dealing with her demanding behavior. I had always been wary of my sister-in-law, especially after hearing about her tendencies from Tom. For a while after our marriage, we were both caught off guard by her seemingly harmless behavior. However, more recently, she had begun showing more interest in our new house. I suspected that she frequently visited when Tom and I were at work. "Oh, Emily, you're back. I guess I'll be leaving now," she said one day, as if nothing was unusual. "I wish you'd stay a little longer, but I think Tom and I might find it inconvenient." "I don't think it's a problem," she replied dismissively, though her tone was cold. "You might say that, but your behavior says otherwise. Guests who overstay their welcome should leave sooner rather than later. See you, Mom, Dad, take care." As my sister-in-law left, I could see the disappointment on my in-laws' faces. They didn't say anything, but their expressions told a different story. They clearly wished she had stayed longer. Feeling uneasy, I retreated to my room after work. At dinner, the atmosphere was tense, and conversations grew more sparse. Tom began noticing the change, and he started to realize that his sister's presence was at the root of it. Then, one holiday, when Tom and I went out shopping, we returned to find unfamiliar shoes by the entrance. We exchanged puzzled looks. Something didn't feel right. As we entered, my mother-in-law came from the living room. "You're finally back. We need to talk." Her tone was unlike usual, and when we stepped into the living room, my sister-in-law and her husband were sitting there. "Ah, you're finally here, Kana. What's going on?" Tom asked, his confusion growing. "From now on, we'll be living here. Please leave," my sister-in-law said abruptly. Tom and I were stunned, unsure how to respond to her sudden declaration. "What is she thinking? Moving in today?" Tom muttered, incredulous. "This is ridiculous. It's not sudden," Kana responded confidently. "We've been talking about it with Mom and Dad for a long time." Tom and I exchanged a look. We knew our in-laws were swayed by Kana's persuasive nature, but we had no idea things had escalated this far. Kana and her husband went on to announce that they'd be taking care of everything from now on. "I'll handle the housework and take care of you both when needed. You can rely on us, Mom and Dad," Kana added with a self-assured smile. My heart sank. If our daughter is here, We won't need you anymore, my father-in-law said coldly. A daughter-in-law who doesn't do housework or have children doesn't compare to Kana. The words stung deeply. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Kana smirked at my reaction, her satisfaction clear. And as for the monthly loan, we'll pay $473, okay? She added casually. Wait, $473? Tom and I were dumbfounded. That's a great deal for such a nice house. The realization hit us like a ton of bricks. Our in-laws were already planning to kick us out after everything we had done for them. We could no longer stay in a place where we were so unappreciated. Is that settled? Kana asked, clearly impatient. We can't leave immediately. Can we have at least a week to find a new place? Fine, my father-in-law grumbled, looking disappointed. The excitement in Kana and her husband's faces was unmistakable. Looking forward to living with Kana and her husband? I asked bitterly as the in-laws exchanged thrilled glances. They were eager to see us go. Calm down, Mom and Dad. The house isn't going anywhere. I'm looking forward to next week, Kana said with a smile, completely oblivious to the gravity of the situation. Tom and I quickly made arrangements to view rental properties. Within a week, we moved out. The day we left our home had finally arrived. As I packed up the last of our things, I turned to the in-laws and said, please take care of everything from now on. Don't ever involve us in this again or come near this house. Their words were harsh, and the way they had so easily turned their backs on us after everything we had done stung deeply. They seemed thrilled about the idea of living with Kana, as if it were some dream come true. We can finally live comfortably with Kana in this house. It's like a dream, they said, practically gloating. As I stood at the entrance with my belongings, I decided to share a crucial piece of information with them. By the way, it seems there's been a misunderstanding about the mortgage. It's $1,825 every month, I said, watching their faces fall. What, $1,825? Isn't the loan only $473 a month? They stammered in disbelief. Let me explain, Tom said, his voice calm but firm. This house is under Dad's name, and the loan is being paid directly from his account. Emily and I were planning to stay here for the rest of our lives, so we agreed that we'd take on the full mortgage. We were paying $473, and Emily was contributing $1,352 each month to our father's account. I guess Dad only remembered how much Emily was putting in, and you never really checked the total cost. The in-laws were stunned into silence. No way, we can't pay $1,825 a month. We can't even afford the living expenses on top of that. How could Emily possibly contribute so much? Tom replied calmly, I'm a department head at a major corporation, so I earn a fair amount. Emily actually makes more than I do. As the shock settled in, Tom continued, you were unaware of this because you never bothered to ask, but we've made our decision, and we're cutting ties. From now on, it's your responsibility to support our parents. No, Emily, Tom, wait, we were wrong, please, let's live together like before, they begged. Is that what you really want, Mom and Dad? Tom said, his voice low. You want to abandon us now? If you can't afford to pay the mortgage, maybe you should live with someone who can. That's not fair, my father-in-law yelled. Dad told me the loan was only $473 a month. That's why we came here. We've already canceled our previous house. That's not my problem, Tom said, standing firm. This whole mess started because you insisted on moving in with us in the first place. And don't think we've forgotten how you always favored Kana. You pampered her for years, and now that it's come down to money, everything else seems irrelevant. The argument between my in-laws and sister-in-law's family was unbearable. Tom and I exchanged a look, and without another word, we walked out. We moved into our rented apartment, cutting all ties with them. The in-laws bombarded us with messages, but we ignored them. Neighbors later told us that the in-laws and Kana's family had no choice but to live together. Unfortunately, they couldn't afford the mortgage and were eventually forced to sell the house. Even after using my father-in-law's early retirement benefits to cover some of the costs, they still fell short. They ended up in a small, cheap apartment, working full-time and part-time jobs just to make ends meet. Apparently, Kana's husband didn't want to bear the financial burden, so he ran off. If only the in-laws had continued living peacefully with us, they wouldn't have ended up in such a mess. But that was no longer our concern. On the other hand, Tom and I settled into our rented apartment and found it cozier than we ever expected. We're saving money at an incredible rate, planning for our future while enjoying the occasional luxury. We're looking forward to a happy life ahead, focusing on building our own future together.